621-3362 number that they have for people that need help. And the people that donated to the Rose Bowl, even the game was out there at the Rose Bowl. And the people in that area can go to the Rose Bowl parking lot and get clothing, food, water, blankets, pet food. They had the whole parking lot this morning. I saw with people who had donated to the people in that area, and my heart go out. My prayers are out for the people in those areas. You know, all the fire victim areas.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and it's good to note that they're not taking any more donations. People donated so much they can't even receive them, but there's lots of other folks that need them. So, you know, that's, if you have stuff to give, there's plenty of places to give it to. It's South LA Cafe today in our area near the station is giving out supplies from 12 to 4, and they are also receiving donations. So if you want to donate and you can't, you know, the Rose Bowl can't take you, South LA Cafe has capacity to receive donations. They need volunteers, and they're also giving away, they've got tons of water, they have food, they have clothing, they have supplies. So if you're on this side, I would suggest that resource. Ed, you got something to... let's let Ed chime in, Dwight, and then you can land.
No, listen, I think, you know, listening and one of the things you mentioned earlier, we kind of let Rick Caruso off the hook. I think it's really important to understand that he was also a DWP commissioner, so privy to some of the emergency preparedness conversations and the idea of pushing back on the narrative that you know, the city is not being run well is important. You know, people have been in place and studied this, and you know, Rick Caruso was a DWP commissioner, and so when we start looking at the issues around the water, yeah, you know, it's sort of ironic that he's the one throwing the stones when he was in position to prepare the city.
That's a great point. I forgot that he was a DWP commissioner, with the closest he's ever come to running anything besides his mouth. And I think it's really important to remember that all these folks pointing fingers they've never even governed a town of 10, let alone a huge and complex city that interfaces with the county. We got people blaming Karen Bass for things happening in Malibu. Malibu has their own mayor. Pasadena has their own mayor. They're part of LA County, but they're not part of the city of LA. And then the people that CNN and such are interviewing are a random homeowner who's yelling at the governor going, "Why is there no water in the hydrants?" Or some foreign reporter who's yelling at our mayor that, you know, our city deserves an apology and trying to stunt for social media. I don't agree with how she handled it. I wish she would have told him to go stuff it. That, you know, she wants to talk to the people of her city, not some rando. But and I think that was mishandled. But the media is just being incredibly irresponsible in a time of an unprecedented generational catastrophe that should be seen as a clarion call for what we might be dealing with in this climate emergency era.
Yeah, you know, I think you're laying out what we're quickly going to have to turn our attention to, which is the future. And you touched on it with Altadena, and you know, this is, you know, although different circumstances, this is very similar to New Orleans post Katrina. When you start to think about the history of Altadena, you know, Altadena was one of the first communities that African Americans could settle in. There was not the redlining that you saw in other communities. And so, you know, at a point, you know, I think in the early 80s, Altadena was almost half black. And, you know, those homes are still there today. In fact, you know, sadly, a couple of the deaths that I think you've seen are from, you know, elders that stayed to try to protect those homes. But very quickly, we're going to have to start talking about how we rebuild and how we maintain minority home ownership in the face of this devastation, because that was an issue that happened in New Orleans. You saw African-American homeowners leave out of the city. And then, again, in Detroit, after the auto industry collapsed, you could see the numbers of African-American homeowners plummet. And that's not something I want to see happen here as well.
It's a great point. I mean, the losses in Altadena are just devastating. And I think it's definitely been underreported. We'll have some folks joining us Monday who are organizing. But I would suggest that, if you want to help, you follow James Farr Live. He's out there working with the folks that are putting together bags and care packages. I think your main point, though, is a much more important, which is, well, they're both important, but how do we maintain the Black home ownership, people having their family homes burned to the ground, and many may be underinsured. We don't know how, insurance companies are, as Dr. Melina Abdullah said yesterday, less likely to approve claims by Black homeowners. And the insurance companies have already been trying to back away from California before this happened. We already have more Black folks homeless than anybody else. And now we have Black folks that actually are homeowners who are looking at not having homes.
And we're going to have to tackle this in the face of a Donald Trump Department of Housing and Urban Development. The true resource that we would look to it won't be an ally, and it's going to take a lot to get people the true justice they're going to need in this.
There's a GoFundMe. It's been started by the Cochran firm, Ivy McNeil, Wyatt Purcell and Diggs, Jasmine Canick, and other community-based organizations. It's on GoFundMe. It's called LA Fires. The Impacted Black Community Urgently Needs Help. And this is money. All of this money will go to Black evacuees who are fighting for survival. And it's up now, so you can go and donate. If you have $1 or $1 million, this would be something to support. Okay, we're taking your phone calls and we're unpacking this stuff. Want to talk about that go bag? I'm sure you and your family have them. Each person in the house needs a go bag, which is ready for you to actually grab and walk out the door, so that you don't have to try to figure out, remember what you need while you're in a panic. Ed Sanders and Dominique DiPrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
Ed Sanders, I do want to talk go bags. Polly in the chat. Yes, there's caller amnesty today, by the way. You can call anytime. 800-920-1580, even if you've called before. Share with me an article, and I've been trying to unpack this because there has been a lot of talk about the cuts to the fire department as opposed to cuts to the, as opposed to increases to the police budget. And the what the mayor's office is saying, and this is also reported in the LA Daily News, whose owner is, it's more conservative paper, but their owner's not tweeting, pointing fingers at the mayor. Anyway, they're saying that that reports that the fire department was cut by $23 million aren't really fair because and the city actually increased the fire department overall budget by $53 million for this fiscal year. $76 million was set aside in a different account because they were still negotiating those contracts for the fire department. So if you look at this year's department budget versus last, it looks like it went down $23 million, but they're saying that's because when the budget was adopted, the city was still negotiating the new contracts. Bob Blumenfeld, who was the chair of the budget committee last year, was also explaining that to folks. I know you've worked in many lawmakers' office and as a staffer and team member. How do you unpack that?
I agree with that. I think there's sort of two ways to look at it. You could just say the raw dollar amount attributed to the fire department, and some of that is, a portion of that is salaries, right? Like you've got to pay the employees, and sometimes the increase in employee costs would count for a rise, in the overall cost of the budget. I think for the purposes of, what people are trying to understand is the capacity of the fire department to respond to the need. I think you can look at dollars set aside for operations and try to evaluate that and see if, the fire department had a sufficient request, for operational budget. The truth of the matter is in unpacking this is, again, a state of emergency. And so, the moment the mayor declares the state of emergency, that the governor declares the state of emergency, those operational dollars are expanded by state and even federal dollars. And so, the conversation around funding to the fire department, I think first rests with, the number of firefighters and I think with fire, with police, you can always say we want more, but the truth of the matter is there's a dollar amount that, the city gathers in terms of its own revenue and is comfortable spending on its employees. But in a scenario like this, it really is the question of, did the state of emergency get declared? It did. federal, state funding has come in to help with the operational side, and we go from there.
The great Instagram, Mutual Aid LA, has a ton of information. And so we talk about a go bag. You need one for every member of the family, including a pet. You're going to need the pet food. You're going to need all of your medications, right? At least a few days supply, couple days supply of clothes, a flashlight. If you have a small portable radio, you get that. Chargers for your electronic devices. And if you have, power banks or battery chargers, you want to make sure everything is charged as much as you can. All of your devices, have them charged, and have the chargers for the devices charged as well. And you want to have copies of your paperwork, if possible, like insurance paperwork, banking stuff, things like that. You want to add to that?
I would throw in a small amount of cash or a suitable amount of cash. I would also put a paper map. I think we're also very dependent on our phones and access to just being able to reach into our phone, but do not assume that your phone can be of any assistance to you in a true emergency. And so, being able to navigate, I would throw a map in there as well.
Yeah. And
contact numbers for people outside of Los Angeles.
Yes, contact numbers written down. I mean, you have them in your phone, but what if your phone goes dead? What if you lose it? You got to have those pieces of paper in a Ziploc bag, if possible, in case your go bag gets wet. And that includes, as Ed says, contacts. And we need a plan. What's the route out of your neighborhood? Is there more than one way to drive there? Where do you plan to go? What's the plan? If people are scattered throughout the city when an evacuation order comes, what's the meetup point for your family? Do you have a person out of the state or out of the city that everyone in the family can call that can act as a sort of information distribution point, where everyone calls into that one person and finds out that everybody's okay, or what the plan is and if it's evolved?
That's right. No scenario can you truly predict for it, but having that sort of bag helps you prepare for most scenarios.
Yes.
But I think the key point is having a plan.
And you got to, and look, I'm talking to myself too, but we have to do these things while we're not in a panic. You don't want to do it when the evacuation order is in place. I always have an earthquake go bag, but I feel like with the fires, it seems like it's bigger, the one that I made, just because what happens if your house burns all the way to the ground? I mean, I don't want to freak you out, but that's happening to people right now. So not that I'm going to be able to take everything, but what would sustain me for a few days? And if possible, I want to see, can I take pictures of some of those family photos and things that I couldn't haul with me, but I really don't want to lose.
It's a lot to think about, but it's also, important time to be prepared, right? And, also in that is practicing the plan. I've got children, as you do, that, I may have a real idea of what to do, but that may not be the case for my children. And I can't also assume that I'm with my children. Children could be at school and, or, I could be incapacitated. So you got to practice it as a family unit.
Yeah, I believe that's right. And I think it's not fun to think about it, but it's a lot better to do it. I think the earlier we make a plan. And by the way, it seems like, it's easy to want to think this is over, but the high winds are predicted through the end of today. And then they could return next week. We're starting to see some containment, a little bit of containment on these fires, but still no rain, still bone dry, still windy. So we got to remain on alert and follow these measures. Wear a mask if you can, and try to stay inside. because these ashes and the particulate matter and gases in the air right now can harm your eyes, your lungs, your skin. Ed Sanders, thank you so much for joining me this morning and helping us get through this together.
Look, I'll continue to say prayers for all those impacted. We as Angelenos and those in Southern California, we've endured a lot. We will continue to endure this, but put your arms around your community members. Thank you, Dominique.
Thank you. News, traffic, and sports. And then we've got our Friedman Friday segment, open phones in the final hour of the show. Wide open, 800-920-1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. All Los Angeles Unified School District campuses and offices are closed for a second day due to wildfire hazards. Residents are urged to stay indoors or wear P100 or N95 masks if outside, as air quality remains hazardous. A powerful winter storm is intensifying as it moves across the southern United States, bringing heavy snow, ice, and